All right, everyone. It is another Grimdark Future Battle Report. Plague Disciples, two custom armies. So, Plague Disciples versus Craft Ship High Elves. So, I'm using the standard Plague Brothers, but I'm also adding in some units from the expanded. I'll post both custom armies, but I'm using their Destroyer Wardens, which I think are just a little more efficient. And I've also been tweaking my Craft Ship High Elves lists, so bringing in some custom units from both sides, 3,000 points. So it's 3,000 points, 4 objectives. This is solo game on Tabletop Simulator. And this is 3.2 testing. So both of these lists are sort of coming out of 3.2. Plague Disciples, they've generally done very well pre 3.2. So very interested to sort of see how the new Putrid rule has replaced it. It shouldn't be as much interactions in the sense that my craft ship high elves have replaced a lot of their rending for flurry, which I think is just, I like it as just a more generic rule. I don't generally like army wide rendings rules. I'll get into that in a second. So yeah, playing with the command points that you can just sort of see here. All right, so for the army list, let's just go into the craft ship high elves. So this is again a custom army I've been working on for a while, and I really like with 3.2 they've added in this limited rule. I think this is a great opportunity to make this army work well with sort of mitigating that pistol tax. So instead of having pistols, I'm calling them shuriken wrist launchers, and basically they're just 9-inch one-shot pistols that have flurry and limited. I actually think this is really good and pretty thematic as far as if you think about history. A lot of hand-to-hand units, whether it's the Romans with their pilums or maybe the Franks with their Franciscas, a lot of times these hand-to-hand infantry they go in with just enough kind of ammunition for one shot. So when I think about this, I do like this in the sense that it does sort of fit in with sort of hand-to-hand infantry having just enough ammunition for one shot before they sort of go into hand-to-hand. So I like that. So this is just like I said, I've been tweaking this high elf craft ship high elf version custom army for a while, and I really like this version where using this limited. So just for the scorpions, just my own version. I've got that scorpions thing, which is basically devour. They're running scout. I've given them a protected upgrade. One of the things with craft ship high elves, I think they do need a little more defensive upgrades. So some of them do get protected. Scorpions traditionally have had heavier armor, so I give them a protected upgrade. Banshees, I've given a dodge upgrade, so I've upgraded that one as well. I've cleaned up some of it as well. Like for the Scorpions, the upgrade isn't a dual weapon with rending. It's just a dual weapon with poison, right? I think that's, it also just makes things practically better, right? You're not having to save extra rolls for the rending. It's like poison, you just roll them all at the same time. So I've got the Avengers unit. They kind of come already with their standard Shield of Grace, which is a regen upgrade, and their Shuriken Carbines. And then we've got, so 2 units of them armed the same. And I really like Flurry on the army, which is Flurry is basically a taser, which is on a 6, you just get an extra hit. It feels a lot better of an army-wide rule than Rending, which is army-wide Rending, especially what they've done with it, is it's sort of in a sort of a wonky place, my opinion. So for some lances, I've also given them some tweaks on their upgrades. I've also given them, I've split up the jet bikes. So I have a hand-to-hand unit of jet bikes and a shooting unit of jet bikes. So the hand-to-hand unit are basically the lances, and I've given them again those mounted shuriken launchers. Again, since they're a hand-to-hand unit, let's sort of make those launchers more limited. Spiders are basically the same. Dragons, I've got an upgrade with a fusion pike for some range. Some Storm Guardians that I've given a Furious. So with my version of craft ship high elves, I've tried to sort of mimic what I consider to be major craft ships. So I've given the Storm Guardians and the Guardians Protectors in Storm some additional upgrades. So in these I've given Furious, also given them a caster upgrade. So sort of like what you would think about a traditional Eldar army that has a Warlock in the unit. I wanted to sort of mimic that, so I've given them a sort of a Seer Lieutenant that has caster 1 and an energy sword. They've also got those shuriken wrist launchers. Again, I think it's good thematically. It works tactically, traditionally, and it's just good. It makes the army a lot more competitive. Temple Hawks, I've given them a speed boost upgrade, so I've tweaked them as well. I've also given them some shred shotguns. I think that Hawks are just in the current version of Hawks are just in sort of a bad place with an 18-inch range, and then they have fast flying and ambush. And so what I've done is given them an upgrade that sort of like a gun that sort of works well with their special abilities. So that shred shotgun is pretty good. Also, like I said, providing some rending in the army. Energy sword is an upgrade. 2 temple masters. One, I've got the shield of grace, which is the region upgrade that I'll be running with the spiders. He's in a spider suit as well, as long as with protected. So those spiders are actually pretty tough. Another temple master as a caster 3 with protected. And I'm running with both of them with dual energy swords. So that's my. I do like this list a lot. I think it's thematic. I think it's good, and I also think it's just competitive. And that's what I'm doing in these tests. I'm doing competitive testing. So for the Plague Disciple, so I'm running standard Plague, but I'm also doing and I'll post the custom army. It's basically an expanded. It's Havoc Disciples expanded. I'll post it in the link. So, but I've got a standard Plague Destroyer with the Blessing of Plague. So this is I'm testing this list with their new Putrid upgrade. Try to make it an elite army. So he's got Chosen Veteran, and he'll be running with the Plague Destroyer Wardens with a Blessing of Plague. You'll notice that well, I'll get into that in a second. But so I have him, and then I've got a Plague Cultist, which is just a really cheap caster 3. 2 units of Plague Zombies that are, go slow and undead. I've got some Plague Cultists that are running 2 Flamers. They've got hand-to-hand weapons and pistols, so really solid unit for 265. Plague Brothers with Chosen Veteran with auto cannons. So trying to make a more of an elite unit with them. I've got some Destroyer. So this is one of the custom armies, and you'll notice they still have regeneration. I actually ran them with Putrid. I think in Putrid and regeneration sort of match pretty well in points. So I did just go ahead and just run them with. I'll be playing them with Putrid, and the Destroyer Champion will give them regeneration. So that's how I'm playing it this game. They've got some toxin launchers, so some really good 18-inch. This Destroyer Warden unit I think is super solid. They've got those toxin launchers, so a very blast heavy unit. I've got them running with some energy fists, so very solid unit for 610, and they've got some plague sprayers as well, just for that reliable. But I really like them with their sort of a lot of just a blast heavy unit. I've ran these guys before, and they've done me very well. Some mutated Plague Brothers I'm running as a 10-man squad, with just their claws, and they've got the mutations. I've got a Greater Plague mutated that's running his mutations as well, and then I've got a Plague Infernal Brute. Now those Greater Plague mutated, that's not the big guy. That's a 6-man strong that has tough. These guys are fast mutations and Putrid. They're super solid. Putated, any of the versions of the mutated Plague Brothers are just super solid. I've got a Plague Infernal Brute. He's a tough 12. I've given him some heavy flamers. He's just a lot of AP4. This Plague army, pre 3.2 has done me very well. So I'm interested to sort of see how they do this game. All right, for the setup. So it is 4 objectives. One of the things that in this one, tried to find a list, and I tried to tweak things that has a lot more difficult terrain on it. I think some of the games I've played hasn't had as much difficult terrain, so I wanted to tweak that. Especially with the new 3.3 guidance, I felt that they were very explicit that they wanted a lot of difficult terrain. So I'm trying to match that. So this is just the 4 objectives in the center. Here, you can see here for the Craft Ship High Elf, sort of set up in the center with the dragons. So I've got the Avengers out in front, and then I've got the Banshees behind them, and then the dragons behind them. The other thing is that the Avengers are also a little more tanky, so they're actually guarding those Storm Guardians behind them. The Storm Guardians are in red towards the right, and then I've got my jet bikes on the far end as well. And then my Hawks are in terrain as well. They've got the speed boosts on them as well. So, and I like the version with the Hawks where you've got both versions. So for the scouting, I know that he's got a lot of fast units. So I had those Scorpions, but the other thing is I know those Plague Disciples are going to go first. And so I couldn't actually place those scorpions very close because he's got those greater plague mutated up there that could just charge them first turn. So sort of forced his fast, just like always, fast units sort of counter scout units in that you sort of force the player to play their scout units less aggressive. So that's just a little up close about the craft ship high elf set where you got the lances on the flank, and then you've got the infantry towards the center. And yeah, just again those scorpions had to really play back because I knew he could reach me. So it's definitely a reason to have a little bit of fast in all your armies. So this is just setting up. I've got the Plague Brothers. They're just going to walk into the building and start shooting things with their autocannons. I've got on the flank those greater plague mutated. In the center, I've got some difficult terrain in the center, and I've got those. So I may be slowing me down in the center. So those 2 units of plague zombies. I've got my mutated brothers behind them. There's that caster. That's that level 3 caster. Cultist champion is by them. You have the plague brute. And then you've got those destroyer wardens. Sorry, some of the difficult terrain in Tabletop Simulator, sometimes you just, I actually prefer flat difficult terrain, but it does make it. But those plague destroyer wardens are to the right of that other unit of plague zombies in the center. And then on the far right, I've got those cultists with those 2 flamers. That's just a picture here, and you can sort of see that the armies are sort of vying for the thing. Yeah. And that's just another picture as well. It's just so that's sort of what the craft ship hives would look like. All right, turn 1. So yeah, the Plague Disciples do get to go first. So the first thing they do is these are these Plague Brothers. They move up and they just get on top of the building, and then they're shooting those scorpions. Really interesting to see some of these new rules interact, where stealth now is just 9 inches. And these also are chosen veteran. They're shooting into some scorpions that are also protected. So it's really interesting to sort of see a lot of these rules sort of interact where they're a little better, but I think that scorpions are a lot better than they used to be. So with the stealth, to only kill 2 of them. Like I said, I really do like the stealth. I think that scorpions were really crappy, only with the stealth only being that. So with the high elves, so you'll see the Avengers are going with one of the Temple Masters, who's the caster 3. He moves up and he actually uses he casts the level 3, which is the +2 AP on the charge. He spends 1, so he uses 3, and then he spends 1 more from the Warlock to give it +1 on the roll, and I get the +2 AP on the charge on the Scorpions and on the Banshees. You can see it's notated by that blue unit there. So those guys have +2 AP on the charge. With the Avengers, they just move up and they shoot at those Plague Disciples who are in cover. Roll pretty good though, and they actually kill 3 of them. So yeah, it's interesting. With the new Putrid is better against units that have regen, but if you better to have rending or poison. But if you don't have those 2, as I said, Putrid isn't quite as good. So, but I also just rolled back because these guys were in cover, so I just sort of rolled bad. So they did lose 3. These Plague Zombies just move up into the difficult terrain. The other Avengers, so they move up their 8, and they're just going to start concentrating fire on these Plague Disciples, shoot them, and actually this is just more rolls, but I did roll really well, and even with a 2-up and a 6-up, managed to kill 3 more of them. So that's a bit of rolls, just going the way of the craft ship high elf so far. The other Plague Zombies just move up towards the center, going to try and grab that center objective. These are the Hawks. So the Hawks just decide to just play a little defensive. They just basically move up into cover behind that building. Those remember those Plague Wardens that you're seeing on the top, they have that 18-inch range blast. So I'm trying to stay out of their shooting arc. This is just the unit of mutated brothers. They just move up behind the zombies. So the Banshees, they rush behind the 2 units of Avengers. Remember, they've got that +2 AP. And they've got Strider as well. So with Fast and Strider gives them a big advantage to just have that first strike capability. This is the Plague Cultist caster. He moves up behind that building to sort of hide. He actually spends two and spends a third one to give it +1 to give the +1 AP. So he gives it to the Greater Plague Mutated and the Mutated Brothers. So those two have +1 AP. But that's just in combat, not on the charge. So this is the Fire Dragons, or the Dragons. They just basically rush up behind the Banshees. I think that he's got some tough units that want to be able to shoot. The Plague Cultists just move up into cover. Yeah, and they... I think that maybe they get one or two shots onto the Hawks. I think a couple of them can see the Hawks, but they miss. So I think that happened. The Scorpions. So the Scorpions actually just moved to the side, right? I know that he's got those Greater Plague Mutated. I don't want those guys charging my Scorpions. So they actually just shift to the side a little bit just to allow rooms for those Storm Guardians to move up in front of them as sort of some chaff. So yeah, this is this Greater Plague Mutated. Remember, this is more of an elite army, so they actually just move up in range to charge different units. Remember, those Greater Plague Mutated don't have flying. I know that's the other units I found. So these Greater Plague Mutated, these are guys just that are just fast. So they don't have the Strider or flying. So I know the wings are messing it up a little bit, but that's the models I could find. So the Storm Guardians that were behind the Scorpions, they just rush up in front of those Scorpions to sort of serve as kind of chaff. This is the Destroyer Wardens. They move up and they shoot those Avengers. So you can just see here, it is going to be covered, but those guys have a lot of blast on them. They actually roll really bad. And this is just a little bit of rolls getting on here. But yeah, roll bad and only kill one of those Avengers. Remember, those guys, those Avengers, they do have cover. But I think, and actually they don't get cover for blast. I think it's just those Destroyer Wardens just rolled really bad because they should have just murdered these Avengers, but they didn't. So yeah, bit of a luck on my on the Craft Ship High Elves part. This is the Lance jet bikes. They just move on top of the building, and they shoot those zombies. They kill 4 of them. So this is just them using their payload. The Fiends move behind the... so this is the Fiend. It just moves up behind those Destroyer Wardens. And yeah, and that's the end of the first turn. You can see both of the armies are sort of closing into one another. It's generally been some really good rolls for the Elves and some pretty bad rolls. I was really expecting those Avengers in the center to just get murdered. But yeah, it is a dice roll game, and so far the rolls have definitely been in the Elven favor. So, but that's just part of testing in these games. Sometimes you really do roll better or worse than one side. So that's just some pictures as well. You can sort of see what's going on here. All right, the Craft Ship High Elves do get a chance to go first. So this is just the bringing in the spiders from ambush. You can see they're back there. And yeah, the first thing we do is one of the things that I think that the Craft Ship High Elves are really leveraging their speed. They go ahead and just charge those Wardens. Those are those lances. So those lances go into those Wardens, roll pretty good, and kill 3 of them. So this is with their deadly, and they also get the +2 AP when they charge. So they manage to kill 3 of those Wardens. But those Wardens, especially with the leader attack back, managed to kill 2 of those lances as well. So, still, I mean, those Wardens are going to be really difficult. One of the things that happened is just more really bad rolls. I actually waver them, I think. But I do go ahead and just spend the command points. They remove the waiver. That's why I like the command points. It sort of mitigates those really crazy rolls. So, the Plague Disciples, like I said, the rolls have not been good with them. But I do, like I said, those command points are sort of mitigating that. At this point, I have the Greater Plague Mutated. They just go ahead and just charge those Storm Guardians. They actually, again, just it's more just terror. I wish I could tell you something different, but like it is just bad rolls. They only managed to kill 4 of these guys. I don't know. I mean, like it is just really, really some pretty bad rolls. The storms. Now, one thing the storm guardians they don't attack back. They're hoping to sort of survive and use their furious, and they do pass their morale. So that's the reason that the storm guardians. I just choose not to attack back on them. So this is the caster. He casts the +1. He spends 3. And I think 4 already just to cast +1 defense on some Avengers and the Lances. So he moves up and then he casts that +1 defense. So this is him just moving to the center, and he casts the +1 defense on his own squad and that Lancers over there as well. I think he also spends 1 to cast the level 1 a damage spell on those Plague Disciples. I think he kills 2 of them. Yeah, so he actually so that's the thing. He spent 3 to cast the +1 defense, and then he had 1 extra. So he went ahead and just casted the +1 level 1 damage spell on the Plague Disciples, kills 2 of them. That's with him also grabbing the Warlock's caster 1. So he technically had 4. So yeah, he actually kills 2 of them, and then the Avengers shoot into the Destroyer Wardens. Those guys are in the center. Does 2 wounds onto them. So, yeah. At that point, the Plague Zombies charge the Lances, and I think I do a couple of wounds. Now, one thing to keep in mind here, I forgot that those Lances were fatigued, so I was actually just rolling. I kill more of these Plague Zombies. You're actually going to see this later on. I actually add them back later, so just keep that in mind that these Plague Zombies, they... technically, I didn't roll these guys as fatigued, but I should have. But I'm going to add them back later, so just sort of keep that in mind here, that the Plague Zombies didn't lose combat, and I did 2 wounds into the Lances. And you're going to see some zombies appear later. All right, so this is the other Avengers squad. They sort of just move up in the difficult terrain. They grab the center objective and they shoot those Destroyer Wardens. Really just trying to whittle these guys down here. I do 4 more wounds, so I end up killing 2 more. Those Wardens are really getting taken down. So this is the Fiend, goes ahead and charges the Lances. And here you can actually see I add those zombies back. So, yeah. Okay, and yeah, so the Fiend charges those Lances, kills 2 of them, but the Lances do pass their morale. I think I ended up doing like 6 or 7 wins on them. The Plague Disciples, they shoot the Avengers so they have those 2 autocannons left, and they shoot the Avengers behind. So that's the one in the back that has the +1 defense. Shoots them and kills 1 of them. Yeah, those guys were, like I said, +1 defense and in cover with the regen were pretty tough. This is the Wardens. They just move back and they shoot. They kill the last 2 of the Lances. So Lances are finally dead. So the Hawks, they move up and they shoot at those zombies, and they kill the remaining of them as well. So yeah, so that's just the Hawks. Yeah, and the Hawks just shoot them, kill the remaining 3, and this is the caster on the Plague Disciples. Caster moves up and spends 3 for the level 3 damage spell, but fails that. So I think he was trying to do the 2 people hitting on 6s. The caster actually, you probably can't see him. He's right in between the Plague Zombies and the mutated Plague Brothers. So tries to cast the level 3 damage spell and fails. Okay. At this point, the Scorpions go ahead and charge those Greater Plague Mutated. I roll great, and remember, these guys are with +2 AP. Managed to kill 4 of them. So that's definitely the advantage of having some chaff units in here. Excuse me. The Plague Zombies go ahead and charge the Avengers. Kill 2 of the Avengers, but also lose 4 of them. They fail their morale, and they lose another 3. So that's the thing. Those Plague Zombies, I probably shouldn't have charged those Avengers. I probably should have just moved them up point-blank range, because I basically lost 3 to combat and lost another 3 or 4 to the crumbling. So probably shouldn't have charged those Avengers. The dragons, they move forward and they shoot the fiend, doing 6 wounds into him, but he does pass his morale. The cultists just rush forward onto the objective, so they grab those first 2. And this is the mutated Plague Brothers in the center. They just move in difficult terrain. This is a mistake on my part. I shouldn't have had those Plague Zombies charge those Avengers. They should have really just moved into... just moved in front of them. So it's a mistake on my part. The spiders move up and they shoot the mutated Plague Brothers. Kill 4 of them. Those AP4 sort of are blowing through. Those mutated Plague Brothers do have an armor 2 up and cover, but basically they just blow through that armor. That's definitely the advantage of AP4 in this new edition. The Storm Guardians also charged. So remember, they didn't attack. They chose to just weather that storm. They go ahead and charge and use their Furious, and they actually finish off those Greater Plague Mutated, and then they just consolidate a little closer. So that's the recap. This game, I like to try to be very, honest when I play these games, and sometimes the dice rolls really go in one unit's favor, and this is one of these examples. Well, the Elves have just gotten a lot of great dice rolls, and you can just sort of see here that the battle is, that happens sometimes where the battle just sort of, the rolls go one way, and things start crumbling real fast. So that's exactly what's happened here. I think that some early hot dice rolls have really put a dent into the Plague Disciples. But I also think that the mutated, Plague Disciples, when I played them before, they were a lot tougher. And I think that with the Putrid 6-up save and no longer the 4-up regen saves, I think, Plague Disciples feel a lot less tough now. So yeah, the Plague Disciples do get to go first as well. That being said, I think it's hard to say. Like I said, this has been a game where the Elves have rolled really good. All right, so the first thing the Plague Disciples do is the mutated brothers charge those Avengers. They kill 5 and lose 1, and the Avengers fail their morale. So the Avengers flee, and then these guys consolidate on the objective. The dragons move up, and they're able to get within 12 and shoot at that Plague Fiend, and they kill it. The cultists, so they just move up and they shoot at those hawks. So they do get their flamers in range. They kill 2 of them, but the 3 hawks pass their morale. They killed 3 hawks, and then the hawks pass their morale. I apologize. The Storm's Guardians, they go ahead and just charge the 2 remaining Plague Disciples in the building, and they kill both of them. They just consolidate on the building. The Plague Champion, so this is the 1 remaining Warden. They move up and they shoot those dragons. They kill 2 of those dragons as well. The Banshees, so remember the Banshees still have the +2 AP on the charge, so they go ahead and just charge those mutated brothers in cover, and they just kill all of them. This is the caster champion cultist. He moves up and he gets off the level 3 damage spell on the storms and the spiders. So yeah, the warlock actually used ones to counter, but still, I think the Plague Champion still rolls like a 5 or a 6. So he manages. So he gets the level 3 damage spell, kills 4 of each. So he kills 4 spiders, kills 4 storm guardians. The spiders waver, the storm guardians don't. The Avengers move up, and the caster casts the +1 defense again. And then they split their fire, so they do have some pistols, and they shoot the cultist and the remaining zombie as well. So yeah, those cultists really are getting hit. The scorpions just go ahead and rush to grab the objective. The spider just unwavers, and the hawks fly over the terrain, and they shoot those cultists. They kill several of them, and they waver them as well. So that's the recap, and boy, oh boy. This, I'm glad I played the game, but it's also like a few things going on. One thing, I definitely think the rolls were in the elves' favor. Really had some good rolls and some bad rolls for the plague disciples. So just sort of looking at it, just trying to just do the caster just attempts to cast something a level 3, but basically the high elf player, the elves are able to just throw all their dispel dice and just counter it. So the caster, the cultist caster just basically just rushes on the objective, tries to cast a level 3 damage spell, it fails. And yeah, so he does rush on the objectives. The banshees just charge the remaining leader and the plague guys and kill them. Actually, I'm sorry, they don't quite kill the leader. He has on 6 wounds. They do 3 to the leader, but he actually routs instead. And yeah, at that point, I just called the game. It's just definitely some bad rolls on the plague disciples end. This is just showing that the hawks and the dragons could grab those last 2 objectives here. I just assumed that the plague champion was going to be killed as well. I didn't roll that out. So yeah, I just assumed those scorpions are going to be able to charge and kill that plague champion. And that's just the end. It's like I said, the elves end up grabbing all 4 objectives. It's a 4-0 victory to the craft ship high elves. It's a turn 4 concession by the plague disciples. I think the new version of the custom army for craft ship high elves works really good. I like the limited attacks on some of their pistols. Make some of their hand-to-hand units a lot more competitive. So one thing I think that I did learn from this game is I definitely should have brought some flying. I think that the plague disciples are a little more elite. I think I could fit in some more units. I was giving some chosen veteran upgrade. I was trying some different things with the army. I do think I could fit in another unit in the plague army. I actually tested it later, and I found I could drop some of the chosen veteran stuff and add in some more units. I probably could use some more plague zombies and probably played a little better on chaff. I also think of some mutated brothers. I need to give them the flying and the ambush wings upgrade. I haven't so far, but I think I do. I like them, but the problem is the moment you run into difficult terrain, the current army I have just needs some more strider or some more flying. Yeah, the craft ship hierarchs limited I think work well, and I think I can also tweak the plague army to add in a few more units. But I will say that plague disciples, you definitely feel the putrid now, like having the 4-up/5-up region, a lot like robot legions. They aren't quite as tough, and I think that's good. But I still think that Plague Disciples is super good, and I like the Plague Disciple Wardens that can kind of bring a lot of their blast, even if I rolled really crappy on them. So thanks for watching. You can always provide feedback, like, subscribe, and comment. And if you're in Austin, we've always got the Austin Alternative Gaming Freaks. Thanks so much.